Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2015 to 2018 series, Hawkeye. Following the unexpected popularity the Purple Archer known as Hawkeye received from the Avengers movie, Marvel decided they needed a series to really revamp the character for a new generation of readers. And that series would be the critically acclaimed 2012 to 2015 series Hawkeye by Matt Fraction, David Aja, and Matt Hollingsworth. So, not this series. But give me a second, this is just an introduction, I'm getting there. That series would feature not just the original Hawkeye, Clint Barton, but also his adorable dog that he adopts and names Lucky. Oh, and the other Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. You see, in Avengers Disassembled, as I covered in my video on it, Hawkeye died in just about the most idiotic way possible. I mean, his literal one ability is to shoot things in a straight line, and he died because he just couldn't shoot something in a straight line. Am I unreasonably angry about that? Yes I am. But I'm not alone, I guess. I don't think Marvel knew just how many people liked the character until they killed him. And when the storyline ended with the Avengers literally deciding to call it quits, the world was left without its primary line of defense in superhero-related events. A heroic teenage version of classic Avengers enemy Kang the Conqueror, in an effort to avoid becoming the villain he would be in the future, then attempted to fill in the gap here to create a new team of Avengers, and they would quickly be joined, rather to their surprise, by the wealthy socialite Kate Bishop, who would become the group's version of Hawkeye. Kate, like pretty much the entire team of Young Avengers, would be an instant hit with fans, and so it's no surprise that she ended up being a major part of pretty much every future Hawkeye comic following that. Because, yeah, it turned out he didn't die, because the fans. By the end of the Hawkeye series started by Fraction, Kate would have spent some time in Los Angeles and decided that rather than stick to the weird mentor/sidekick thing she's had with the other Hawkeye, she needed to prove herself standing on her own, and so she returns to LA to open up a private detective agency in a brand new series written by Kelly Thompson, whose comic background existed pretty much only in the IDW reboot of Jim and the Holograms. So, did this relative newcomer have the chops to follow up Fraction's award-winning Hawkeye series? Let's find out and take this away! The comic opens on the beach! Spring break! Woo! Spring break LA! Yeah! Only it's not time for fun for Hawkeye Kate. She's working, following this guy called Brad, because of course he is. Though we don't really learn who he is or why Kate is looking for him for kind of some time after this, because, as you may have guessed from all these references to breaks that Kate's narration is making, we're about to get a Point Break reference. So some guys in president masks are making a daring daylight robbery, and Kate intervenes. I love these little target circles around important objects that we get. It's going to be used a lot, and I expected it to get pretty annoying, but it's actually pretty cool. It really forces the artist to do some work, making big, establishing shots with lots of little details, and it's a nice way of doing some showing, not telling. Kate is here to become a private eye, and it's showing her attention to detail and ability to take in a scene, and lets us, as the reader, focus on little details that might be important later. As Kate deals with the bank robbers, we also get our first glimpse of the great action spreads that really mark this series. This first one isn't my favorite in the series, but it still does a great job of showing just how much action this comic can pack into a short page count. My favorite of all these action spreads is definitely this one. I love how it utilizes the entire room full of thugs, making the setting a part of the story and not just a set piece. And I've always just loved dynamic art like this, that shows movement over time in a single spread. It's so cool. Just endless praise for the art team on this comic, for serious. There really are a lot of these, and I'm not going to have time to go over them all, so I'm making a point about them now so you can just know they're there. Anyway, because Kate gets involved in stopping the heist, she loses that Brad guy, so we move on to her trying to run her detective agency. which mostly just involves people stopping by looking to meet the other Hawkeye, or looking for an optometrist due to her sign looking like this. See, it's not Hawk Investigations because that eyeball is there. It's Hawk and then an eye. You get it. But one customer at the end of the day finally does actually want her help in tracking down a stalker who has been sending her threatening comments on her blog. Yes, I said blog. Yes, this comic was 2015 and not 2005, but I guess blogs were still kind of a thing at that time. We hadn't quite made the switch to YouTube vlogs and TikToks just yet. I mean, in 2015 we still had Vines. You guys remember Vine? Kate's new client is Mika, that's with 2 Ks, who actually happens to be the ex-girlfriend of Kate's neighbor, Ramon, who owns and runs the surf shop that is the other side of the building where Kate has set up headquarters. As you can see on this super sweet floor plan they provide as an extra in the collected editions. Man, that's a lot of space. And there's 2 bathrooms? I have never had an apartment this nice. Kate complains about money a lot in this series. It literally opens with her not getting her PI license because it costs $225, which, I mean, I agree that's a lot. But then she manages to somehow live and work in a place that's nicer than any apartment I've ever had. And this is in LA. And it has this super sweet Spider-Ham head coming out of a rainbow on the outside? What's not to love about this place? 2 bathrooms. Well, 1.5. Still, Mika goes to school at the fictional Kinney College, so Kate heads there to do some research, stealing a student ID to get access to a computer lab, where she conveniently meets a cute guy named Quinn, who immediately agrees to work for her as her guy in the chair to track down where all those angry, threatening messages Mika was receiving were coming from. Not that Kate really needs the help, it turns out, because she immediately finds the guy when she goes to follow Mika around campus. Because he's just brazenly taking pictures of her with his phone, just all out in the open. Like, dude, for serious? Kate takes him to the cops, who can't really do anything about a guy who was taking pictures in a public place that might be sending threatening messages. But really this segment is just here anyway to introduce us to Detective Rivera, who's a lady, and her leg holster. She serves as the replacement for Detective Calder from the previous Hawkeye series, though I'm not really sure why they couldn't just reuse Calder. I guess Thompson just wanted her own side characters. Which is fair. Calder was a big grumpy grumps anyway. So Kate finds herself unable to do anything about stalker guy Larry, and the plot only thickens when Quinn informs her that the threatening messages come from more than one source. And there seems to be ramping up levels of violence in Venice, as Kate has to stop these guys from attacking a woman that it seems was a close friend of theirs. Which gives us an excuse to meet yet another character, Johnny. He's just dreamy. And we'll eventually learn that he's Ramon's brother. Yeah, Johnny and Ramon. Yeah. But like, for reals, K-Tom? You went with Johnny and not Joey? Okay. Oh, hey, I just realized Thompson's initials are our main character's name. What a coinkydink. To make matters even worse, it seems Mika's been kidnapped, possibly by a group called TBC, or Take Back Control, who she was apparently investigating on her blog. TBC turns out to be some kind of weird, creepy cult thing, and Stalker Larry Guy was a part of it. Go figure. And so is Rivera, apparently, as the ankle holster immediately shows us, despite the weird mask that they all wear. Or at least Rivera was pretending to be part of the cult in order to learn more about them, and she actually helps Kate escape an attack by a group of them. But Kate doesn't give up on searching for Mika despite Rivera's warnings, and tracks Larry the stalker guy to a party at a swanky beach house, which she of course crashes. Wearing a Dazzler sweater, may I mention. Love that little detail. Inside the house, she finds a secret dungeon with Mika tied up and drugged, thanks to little patches that the cult leader has been using to brainwash the members of the cult. The leader calls himself Aggregate because he uses the drug to absorb all the emotion of his followers to Hulk himself out. I love that Thompson ends an issue with Kate saying, "Oh boy," Are you a fellow Quantum Leaper, Thompson? After a brief fight, Kate manages to deal with Aggregate by tying him up in a banner at a nearby outdoor film festival, where all the good vibes of singing along to the sound of music just lulls him right to sleep. But after being locked away, Greg, because you see his real name is Greg asks to speak with her, and just as he starts to indicate that he's part of a bigger criminal conspiracy that may just involve her dad, he suddenly gets really sick and then just freaking explodes? Oh dear God! What's up with dudes exploding in interrogation rooms in comic books? I'm looking at you, Gotham by Midnight. At least this time it's a little less disgusting, seeing as the blood is green? That's weird, right? Before we can get the answer to that, we get back to that business with Brad, as Jessica Jones shows up, having apparently been looking for him too. Jones was actually pretty much the first superhero Kate met during her first outing in the Young Avengers, despite the fact that at the time, Jones had hung up her tights and was working as a reporter at the Daily Bugle. This gives us a few more noir references, with a direct reference to Sunset Boulevard and a plot straight out of LA Confidential, where Brad's ex-girlfriend had gone missing, only for it to turn out that she's become a beautiful young starlet, looking rather different than the pictures of the girl Jones had been sent to find. The girl, now actress Dahlia Dorian, a name that's probably a double reference, is apparently also an Inhuman, who changed after being exposed to Terrigen Mist, giving her her new look, but also causing her to occasionally become a giant dragon, a transformation she seems to have little to no control over. Once they've realized she's an Inhuman, they're able to get her help, but when Kate returns home, she's unexpectedly attacked by some thugs who leave her a gift. A necklace that used to be worn by her mother. The gift was from Madame Mask, an old Iron Man villain. Kate earned Mask's wrath in the previous Hawkeye series when she knocked the supervillain out and tied her up in order to briefly impersonate her. It was a whole thing, I'm not going into it now. So now it seems Mask is getting back at Kate through her mom, who Kate believes to be dead. In fact, it's kinda looking like Dad might have been the one who killed her. See, yet another thing that happened in the previous Hawkeye comic was that Kate learned her father may have been some kind of supervillain, and we get a continuation of that story here. Because as Kate attempts to launch a one-woman raid on Madame Mask's giant super fancy headquarters, leading to that action spread that I love, once she makes it past all the guards, what she finds isn't Madame Mask, but instead, her father. Looking a lot different from the way he looked last we saw him. It seems that Papa Bishop went to Madame Mask to get a new body, claiming that he was sick, though Kate doesn't seem to fully be buying it. Along with renewed youth, the new body has also awoken latent superpowers in him. It seems in his DNA he had the potential to develop superpowers, but they never came out in his regular body. The clone body that he's in now, for some reason, is enough to bring those powers to life, and they've made him a sort of offshoot Purple Man, able to implant command suggestions into people's heads that they're forced to obey. Aggregate was a similar case, having been also given a clone body by Madame Mask that similarly woke up his sleeping superpowers and allowed him to become the B-side Hulk that he became. Honestly, this whole plot point could have probably been foreseen if you read the previous Hawkeye comic, as it saw Kate briefly in LA working as a private eye, learning all about how Mask had gotten into the business of making life model decoys to keep people alive. But it seems she's now graduated from LMDs to full-on clones. Despite Poppy Bishop's wish to use his powers to erase Kate's memories of their encounter, Kate manages to get away, thanks to a splody arrow, and seems to have been so heavily affected by the encounter that she decides to simply spend a night out on the town with her friends, partying away, ignoring all her responsibilities, and just totally not giving any completely obvious signs that she's not actually Kate at all. Like, suddenly not knowing who Lucky is, her bestest fluffy good boy that she totally stole from the other Hawkeye, but she definitely deserves him more, or not wanting to fight crime when classic Hawkeye villain Oddball randomly shows up to the club they're at. And also by revealing that she carries a freaking gun once Quinn finally does convince her to actually intervene in Oddball's attack. But yeah, I'm sure that's totally Kate, you guys. Oh, what? It's not Kate? And Kate's actually locked away in a dungeon thanks to Madame Mask? with Fluffy Good Boy Lucky, who's a good boy, yes you are. Who could have seen that coming? Kate quickly frees herself, learning in the process that her dad is also a prisoner there. I guess captured for the disparaging words he had to say about Mask in the previous story, as she was apparently spying on him. And I guess he, vaguely confesses to killing Kate's mom? She's unwilling to remove the tape from his mouth because of his power, so she just kind of accepts that her assumption is right, and I guess we just gotta go with it. And she then just leaves him there. Kinda messed up, Kate, but, can't really argue. She makes her way to her friends in Body Double, knowing where they are since Mask's henchmen that had been keeping watch on her had also been watching a live feed of everything fake Kate. Kate? No? Alright then. Anyway, they had been watching a live feed of everything Mask Kate was doing. The two Kates brawl across LA in the Hollywood sign before Mask Kate simply disappears, proving once again that perfectly symmetrical violence never solves anything. We then get a brief cameo appearance from the all-new, semi-different Wolverine, as this is the point where X-23 had taken over the role. Which is great, because it means also getting an appearance from Gabby, who is just the best, and Jonathan, the actual Wolverine. Those two should be in everything all the time. They're just pure joy. The cameo doesn't have much to do with our story though, other than to convince Kate that she can't do everything on her own, so she finally calls in her partner so we can go full Hawkeye up in here. I'll try not to ever say full Hawkeye again. Kate Hawkeye is looking for help in finding her mom, since she has come to believe that what the necklace Mask sent her meant was that her mom is actually still alive. But she has no other clues than that, as indicated by the completely empty crazy person clue board that she has in her apartment. Well, empty other than a sticky note that says, Mom. And that lack of info to go off of is why Clint Hawkeye recommends they attempt to deal with his thing first. They discuss it over pizza, where Kate insists that her thing is more important, but we also learn that Clint's thing is that someone is trying to murder him. Really, Clint? Someone's after you so hard that they're willing to assassinate you in broad daylight, and you thought to yourself that that information could wait until after pizza? This is why you're the lesser Hawkeye. I'm just saying. Their would-be killer is one Eden Vale, a teleporter that was first introduced in a comic called Generations, Hawkeye and Hawkeye, a series of comics Marvel was doing that let modern characters hang out with their classic counterparts. I mentioned another one briefly during one of my Lady Thor videos. Anyway, the Hawkeye version of the story saw Kate and Clint trapped on an island, being hunted by every skilled marksman to ever exist, in a plot created by Clint's former mentor and secret supervillain, the Swordsman. Swordsman had discovered Eden Vale, and the fact that using people's blood, she could pull them out of their timeline and into another time and place. Eventually, Kate and Clint were able to appeal to Eden's better nature, as she was also misled by the Swordsman, just as Clint had been, and she sends them all home. But now she wants Spartan dead because of what happened when he had been leading a group called the Underground during Secret Empire, a story where the terrorist organization Hydra had taken over America. The Underground had operated out of Las Vegas, and the city had been bombed by Hydra in retaliation. This had resulted in Eden's daughter, Lucy, being killed. And now she's angry at Hawkeye specifically, but also just superheroes in general, considering the way they just jump from crisis to crisis without care. And, I mean, she's right, but only because Marvel insists on doing a new big event crisis every summer. They could really cool it on the crises. Crisis-y. Crisis? You know what I mean. So Eden attempts to coerce Kate to join her in her efforts to kill Clint, offering her her mother back by pulling her out of the time stream before she died. And you'd probably ask here, like I did, why she doesn't just pull her own daughter out of the time stream then, and the answer is because it's temporary. We learned this after a big fight where Eden has joined forces with Mask and once again pulled in various Hawkeye villains from throughout history for a great big showdown. We also learned during the fight that Johnny also has some kind of absorbing man powers, as he saves Kate's life from some falling rubble. A little girl with the most adorable little Lockjaw plush also almost gets killed in the fight, and between that making Eden realize she's becoming what she hates, and Kate managing to get her hands on the briefcase full of blood that Eden uses to pull people out of time, they manage to talk Eden down. The cops show up to arrest everyone, but Mask, of course, gets away. Though we learn that there's apparently been someone who has secretly been in charge of her this whole time, and that person might just be Kate's mom? And then that's where the comic ends? What? How can you end the comic there? There's so many questions! But I guess we'll have to leave those for another time and just get to the breakdown. Maybe you can tell, but I really enjoyed this comic. Leonardo Romero's art really sells it for me. At times it seems almost too simple, but it's more like deceptively simple. There's so many little details included in the work, from just detail in the background to more specific things like how the license plates all have the release month for the issue as their plate numbers. And those action sequences. Seriously, I love how much they can cram into a single sequence. It makes this relatively short comic feel like there's so much more going on than you usually get in a modern issue of a comic book. And there are ways you can tell, I admit, that Thompson is definitely new to the game. And maybe she's being hefted up by working with so many industry greats, but I feel she definitely deserves credit for the things she does get right. The story flows well, the dialogue is snappy and quirky in a very entertaining way, and the characters are all believable and enjoyable people. The superhero drama and action is over the top and wild, and honestly far cry from the maybe overly realistic noir style of the previous Hawkeye series, where Kate and Clint could barely stand up to anyone. But honestly, I prefer it this way. Call me crazy, but I like my superheroes to be competent. My biggest complaint is probably the underuse of the side characters, which just tends to happen in most comics. I'm not so much bothered by their underuse, but more that we're still expected to think that they've been here a lot and that we really got to know and love them all despite seeing so little of them. And I feel like maybe we could have gotten there in a longer series, but I don't feel like we did get there in this one. And part of that just comes from the divide between reading the series as it's coming out and feeling like you've known these characters for years, versus binging it over a short period of time after it's completed. The characters just don't have the same chance to stew. I see modern comics do this a lot, especially in the New 52, so I can't really hold it against this comic individually. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of high. Probably just about whatever you were wanting from this series, it delivers on. Whatever shortcomings it might have, I feel aren't worth dwelling on considering everything it does right. The collected edition gets 1. Madam Mask, Mask, 2. Inexplicable hip holes, 1. Splody Arrow, and 1. Fluffy Good Boy. Oh, I mean Lucky the dog. Which of course, as always, is moving from bad to good. Been a while since I've had multiple things to do. Almost like I can't keep up a schedule if I do more than one book. That's obviously not the case. Anyway, that breaks down like this. Volume 3 is only 5 issues and has some bonus covers, and while one of those 5 issues is the Bonus Generations issue, which is nice, that still makes this kinda the least of the collections. Volumes 1 and 2 are both 6 issues and have some bonus covers, with Volume 2 having some bonus sketch art as well. There's also 2 newer collections of the series, and they get the 2 remaining symbols, like this. The second volume there, Go West, is 9 issues long, featuring everything that was in Volume 3, Family Business, plus the first 4 issues of the West Coast Avenger series that immediately follows this series. So that's pretty sweet. But still on top is the first volume of the newer collection, Private Eye, which has everything from the first 2 volumes of the original collections, meaning it has 12 issues, a bunch of bonus covers, and some sketch art, and it also has issue 0 from the Marvel Rising comic. I have no idea why, but why not, I guess? Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. This'll probably be my last video that's not in the New 52 for a while. Gonna be kicking it real hard in the New 52, so those of you who have been waiting for that, I hope you're excited. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, or you just are interested in what else I'll be doing, or you're just a nice person, then make sure you click and comment and do all the YouTube things, and then I hope to see you next time, right here in the Comic Cave.